Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥.
Good evening aspirants, welcome to the Hindu News Analysis discussion brought to you by ForumIAS for the date 24th of July 2023. These are the list of news articles for today's discussion. We will be covering 5 topics from governance, science and technology, international relations and a topic from environment. Alongside this, we will also be discussing 2 previous year prelims questions at the end of the discussion. So straight away, now let us move to our first article of the day. First topic on ED's power to arrest and seek custody. The news is that Madras High Court recently upheld the legality of a Tamil Nadu minister's arrest by the Enforcement Directorate, and the High Court has also upheld the subsequent remand in judicial custody in a money laundering case linked to cash for job scam. So from this context, let us know more about Enforcement Directorate from exam point of view. See, ED is a specialized financial investigation agency. This agency works under the Department of Revenue, which is under the Ministry of Finance. Its headquarters is at New Delhi, which is headed by the Director of Enforcement. If we take the history of ED, it got originated on the month of May 1956 as an enforcement unit in the Department of Economic Affairs. At that time, it was formed for handling exchange control laws. That is, enforcement unit dealt with cases that violated Foreign Exchange Regulation Act of 1947. But in the year 1957, this unit was renamed as Enforcement Directorate. Know that in the year 1960, the administrative control of the Directorate was transferred from the Department of Economic Affairs to the Department of Revenue. And mandate given to ED is to enforce the provision of 2 special fiscal laws. They are Foreign Exchange Management Act and the Prevention of Money Laundering Act of 2002. Now coming to the structure of ED, see, the Directorate of Enforcement with its headquarters at New Delhi is headed by the Director of Enforcement, and in addition to it there are 5 regional offices. They are located at Mumbai, Chennai, Chandigarh, Kolkata and in Delhi. These regional offices are headed by the Special Directors of Enforcement. If you take recruitment, the recruitment of the officers is done directly and by drawing officers from other investigation agencies. That is, the personnel from ED comprises officers of IRS, IPS and IAS backgrounds such as income tax officers, excise officers, custom officers and police. Now coming to the tenure, in the year 2021, the President of India promulgated 2 ordinances. Through this ordinance, the centre got the power to extend the tenure of directors of CBI and ED from 2 years to 5 years. Likewise, the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946 and the CVC, that is the Central Vigilance Commission Act of 2003, have been amended. This amendment empowered the government to keep the chief of ED in their post for 1 year at a time after they have completed their 2-year term period. Hence, the chiefs of the central agencies currently have a fixed 2-year tenure and they can now be given 3 annual extensions also. So totally the Director of ED can be in office for a period of 5 years now. But know that no further extension can be granted after the completion of a period of 5 years in total. Now let us know how ED functions under the PMLA Act. See, the ED has power to carry out search and seizure of property and documents after it has concluded that the money has been laundered. For this, it uses the power under the Section 16 and Section 17 of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. On the basis of that, the authorities decide if arrest is needed as per the PMLA Act. And know that under Section 50 of the PMLA, the ED can also directly carry out search operations without calling the person for questioning. So it is not necessary to summon the person first and then start with the search and seizure. If the person is arrested, the ED gets 60 days to file the charge sheet. If no one is arrested and only the property is attached, then the prosecution complaint along with the attachment order will be submitted before the adjudicating authority within 60 days. Now if we take the ED's jurisdiction, since both FEMA or PMLA apply to the whole of India, the ED can take action against any person on which this act applies. Know that cases under FEMA may lie in civil court, whereas the PMLA cases will lie in the criminal courts. Also, ED has jurisdiction over a person or any other legal entity who commits a crime. Importantly, all the public servants come under the jurisdiction of the agency if they are involved in any offence related to money laundering. So, corruption in public life will be countered using the ED institution. However, ED can not take an action suo motu. Someone has to complain to any other agency or police first, then only ED will investigate the matter and will identify the accused. So this is enough from prelims angle. Let us know about the challenges that is faced by ED from mains angle. Firstly, critics say that the government has been using the foreign funding law as a tool to silence its critics, and in addition to it, it also targets NGO groups that have raised concerns about the social cost of India's rapid economic development. Secondly, conviction of cases. Under PMLA, the agency has conducted over 1,700 raids between the years of 2011 to 2022. In the same period though, the ED has managed to secure convictions in only 9 cases. Thirdly, ED has insufficient manpower. Though various stories, anonymous ED sources have complained about insufficient manpower, this problem is yet to be solved, and because of this there is difficulty in establishing evidence of a proper money trial and poor litigation strategies. Fourthly, it is regarding the question of independence and misuse. Critics of ED are calling it as a tool of political intimidation because ED's administrative control comes under a ministry, that is, it comes under the executive control. For example, the Panchkula land case created widespread criticisms over the enforcement directorate. Fifthly, ED lacks jurisdiction if the convict is out of India. ED's power to investigate or arrest the convicts at present is limited within the territory of India only. Lastly, the funding is inadequate. That is, the powers and the responsibility of ED requires adequate financing, but the previous budgetary allocations are inadequate with respect to functioning of ED. So this is all about the negative sides which needs to be addressed. So from this news article discussion, we saw about enforcement directorate from prelims angle, and also regarding the structure, functions and the criticisms part of it. So with this, let us close this topic and move to the next topic of the day. Second topic, 𝐒𝐻 cautions against ransom Akira attack. The news article reports about an internet ransomware virus named Akira. This ransomware is being used to steal vital personal information and encrypt data. So through this, the perpetrators are extorting money from people. So from this topic, let us cover about cyber security comprehensively. See, cyber security refers to the technique of protecting computers, networks, programs and data from unauthorized access or attacks. It means securing the cyberspace from attack, damage, misuse and economic spying. Know that cyber threats are anonymous and borderless. Thus it makes the tracking of criminals difficult, and also cyber security is one of the national security issue. So that is why it is appearing in news often. If we take the threats related to cyber security, see, there are 4 primary threats to cyberspace. First is the cyber warfare. Cyber warfare refers to virtual conflict that is initiated with a potentially motivated intention to attack enemy's computer and information system through internet. The aim of such an intrusion usually is to disrupt the system, destroy them partially or entirely. For instance, in the year 2010, Stuxnet, which is a malicious computer worm, was designed to attack industrial programmable logic controllers of Iranian nuclear program. So that is one form of cyber warfare. Then the second element is the cyber espionage. It is the use of computer network to gain illicit access to confidential informations. that are typically held by government or other organizations. Other component is the cybercrime. There are several actions that leads to cybercrime. They are like hacking, child pornography, cyber stalking, denial of services, malware, phishing, botnet, and many others like that. So let us know about few important terms alone. If you take malware, it is nothing but a malicious software which is designed to perform unwanted illegal act through the computer network. If you take phishing, it is a cyber crime in which targets are persuaded by mails to provide sensitive information by someone who poses as a legitimate website. If you take botnet, they are number of internet connected devices with each one running its own bots. They are used to perform stealing of data, send spam mails, etc. Various other types of cyber crimes are like trojans, ransomware, intellectual property theft, spyware, etc. The other component which comes under the threat to cyber security is the cyber terrorism, politically motivated use of computers and IT to cause severe disruptions or fear in society is called as cyber terrorism. It includes activities such as spreading extremist propaganda, recruiting terrorists, promoting the propaganda of terrorists, etc. Now, if we take the Indian scenario with respect to cyber security, see, cyberspace has emerged as the fifth arena of war. Further, cyberspace has also allowed the terrorist groups to stay anonymous and propagate their nefarious activities. And as per the Kantar report, India's internet base has breached the 600 million mark in the year 2023, and it is likely to reach 900 million by the end of 2025. So it is expected that it will generate huge volumes of data. Then the second one is regarding increasing cyber crimes. See, as per a report by the internet solutions provider Symantec, India is the third most vulnerable country in the world in terms of cyber security threats. And another point is that India aims to be a digital economy, no? So India also has the third largest ecosystem for technology driven startups in the world. And further, promotion of innovation and entrepreneurship through the startups and enabling services such as Aadhaar, My Government through the cyberspace requires secure cyberspace. So for that we need cyber security provisions. And another point is with respect to the Indian e-commerce market. The Indian e-commerce market is expected to reach US dollars 200 billion by 2026. So this increases the vulnerability of the customers to online frauds. And the final point is that there has to be a provision to protect the critical infrastructure, because critical infrastructure systems such as finance, defense, telecommunications require security of networks to function efficiently. And as India moves into the fourth industrial revolution, the rise of Internet of Things, AI, machine learning would require these systems, especially the communication systems, to be secure. So that is what it is all about, the Indian scenario right now. And if we take the steps taken by the government, first is with respect to institutional measures. Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, which is the CERTIN, functions under MeitY to secure India's communication and information infrastructure. Then there is another institution called NAT-GRID, which is the National Intelligence Grid. This is the central agency. This agency aims to have an integrated intelligence grid that will store sensitive personal information on citizens from different government agencies. And then there is Cyber Swachhta Kendras, which is a botnet cleaning and malware analysis center. It helps in detecting malicious programs and free tools to remove such programs. Fourthly, there is another institution named National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center, which is the nodal agency for protecting critical information infrastructure. Know that this institution is created under the IT Act of 2000. Now if we come to the legislative measures, IT Act of 2000 provides legal recognition to electronic documents. It also provides a legal framework for e-commerce transactions and to deal with cyber crimes. Secondly, National Cyber Security Policy of 2013 aims to create a secure cyberspace, and it also develops suitable indigenous security technologies to enhance global cooperation. Third legislative measure is regarding the National Encryption Policy 2015. The aim of it is to secure transaction in cyberspace for individuals, businesses, government, including nationally critical information system. Then if you take the programs and initiatives of the government, Cyber Surakshit Bharat initiative is first public-private partnership where the various IT officers across different levels of governments, banks, PSUs are trained by IT industries. Then secondly, there is a program named Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center Scheme. This acts as a nodal point in the fight against cybercrime and misuse of cyberspace for furthering the cause of extremist and terrorist group. Thirdly, Cyber Warrior Police Force to operate under National Information Security Policy and Guidelines Wing of MHA's CIS division. So this is also one of the program, Cyber Warrior Police Force. Then as a way forward to enhance cyber security, we can consider the Gulshan Roy Committee recommendation. This recommendation suggests establishing a new Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center and linking it to NATGRID and CCTNS to deal with cybercrimes. Then it also recommends for offensive cyber deterrence. That is, the government should work towards building systems to intercept and exploit communication and digital networks. Then the third point that we could say is to boost indigenous electronics manufacturing. The government should provide adequate funding for creating an indigenous electronics manufacturing ecosystem. Then the fourth point is regarding developing PPP models. See, tech startups and private industries should be encouraged to work with government agencies. Then the government should draft recruitment guidelines to develop a cadre of cyber specialists. Then finally, a suggestion could be to sign the Budapest Convention. The Budapest Convention is the first international treaty dealing with cyber crimes. India should sign the treaty for effective international collaborations. So that is all about the suggestions that we could provide here. So from this topic we saw about cyber security, the threats to it, Indian scenario with respect to cyber security, and the steps taken by the government of India. Then also regarding the suggestions in order to overcome certain issues in cyber security model. So with this, let us close this topic and move to the next topic. Third topic, will generic supply of bedaquiline be accessible? See, recently the Indian Patent Office has rejected Johnson & Johnson's attempt to extend its monopoly on the manufacturing of bedaquiline drug. Here you should know the Patent Office invoked Section 3 of D of Indian patent law in its judgment. This is because the Indian patent law does not allow evergreening of patents, and moreover it prevents pharma majors from extending the patent beyond the stipulated monopoly on the drug. Note that since the year 2007, Johnson & Johnson has indulged in evergreening by making multiple claims in its application for patent extensions. From exam point of view, let us know what is bedaquiline and evergreening of patent means. First is regarding bedaquiline. See, bedaquiline is anti-TB drug that is used in combination with other medicines to treat tuberculosis patients when the first line of treatment fails to kill the bacteria. The use of this oral drug has been crucial for tuberculosis treatment in the country, as it has lesser known harmful effects than injectable drugs. Know that the cost of tuberculosis treatment by bedaquiline is expected to significantly drop due to the rejection of the patent, as it would allow Indian manufacturers to manufacture generic medicines. Now if we take the evergreening, see, evergreening is a term that is used in the context of intellectual property rights, particularly with regard to patents. It refers to the practice of extending the exclusivity period of a patent holder by making small modifications or improvements to the original invention. That is, the patent holders will hold the monopoly to produce a product for a longer period by getting the patent rights continuously just by making minor modifications to the product. The goal of evergreening is to extend the period during which the original inventor can profit from their invention. This is typically done by filing for new patents that cover variations or modifications of the original inventions, even if those modifications are relatively minor. Here, the critics of evergreening argue that it stifles innovation by preventing other inventors from building on existing technology. They also argue that it drives up the cost of drugs and other patented products, making them less accessible to people. Now let us see what is this section 3 of D of Indian Patent Act 1970 is. See, this section 3 of D states that inventions that are merely a discovery of a new form of a known substance do not result in increased efficacy of that substance, and they are not patentable. This implies that India did not support patents for inventions which were minor modifications from the original invention, and it also prevented undue monopoly during the extended period of patent protection by the company. And here you must know certain facts about TB that is mentioned in the article. See, tuberculosis was the world's deadliest infectious disease before COVID-19 swept the world. Each year, nearly 1 crore people develop TB, and in that nearly 5 lakh people develop drug-resistant TB. Adding to that, 1/3 of the world's population has latent TB, which is a version of disease that can turn active as immunity falls. Another matter of fact is that nearly 28 lakh TB patients live in India, making it a national public health emergency. So, by rejecting the evergreening of patents to Johnson & Johnson company, we can expect the reduction of the cost of tuberculosis treatment, as the drug bedaquiline is expected to the price of the drug bedaquiline is expected to drop significantly. Besides that, it would also allow Indian manufacturers to manufacture this generic medicine. So that is all about the topic. So from this topic we saw about bedaquiline and also some facts regarding tuberculosis. So with this, let us close this article here. G20 disaster risk meeting commences in Chennai today. The news is regarding the G20 disaster risk reduction working group that is set to hold its third and final meeting in Chennai. Here, know that this G20 disaster risk meeting is held under the leadership of India. So from this context, let us know about G20 covering prelims angle. See, the G20 grouping, which is a grouping of 19 countries, and the European Union, was born in the year 1999 only as a consultation forum. This was a consultation forum between the finance ministers and central bank governors of world's major economies. But following the 2008 economic crisis, it became a forum between head of the state and governments aimed at improving coordination on the main global issue. As a matter of fact, at present, G20 nations represent 60% of the global population, 80% of global GDP, and 75% of global exports. Know that the G20 does not have permanent offices or employees. The country that presides over the group takes care of all the organization and the logistical coordination of the meetings. If you take the objectives of the G20, they are like providing policy coordination between its members in order to achieve global economic stability. Then they also try to promote financial regulations that reduce risks and prevent future financial crises. And the third objective is to create a new international financial infrastructure. Now let us see what are the achievements of G20 groupings. I will list it one by one. The main achievements of the G20 include increased participation of emerging countries in global issues, the reform of international financial institutions, the monitoring of national financial institutions. Then one of its achievement is the improvement in regulation of economies and creation of safety nets in order to prevent economic problems like global economic crisis in the future. Then there are few examples where G20 played a crucial role. First is the quick deployment of emergency funding during the 2008 global financial crisis. Then its role in the ratification of trade facilitation agreement. Then G20 have also driven reforms to the international tax system. In recent times, the ambit of issues under discussion has been expanded to include climate change, agriculture, health, education, water, etc. Now let us see what are the challenges that are associated with G20 grouping. The first major criticism includes that G20 is an informal structure. See, it has no permanent secretariat and the agenda changes every year according to the priorities of the presiding nation. So critics say that G20 basically was an extension of G7. Then the second criticism with respect to G20 is that G20 influences decision making of smaller countries. the smaller countries which are not a group of G20 grouping are forced to implement the declaration and commitments which are agreed by the G20 nations. For example, the G20 nations agreed to end international financing for coal power plants. So, a small nations cannot get any finance from G20 nations for new coal power plant, and these small countries had to use its own limited financial resources or phase out coal and look for other alternatives. So by this way, one of the criticisms is that G20 influences the decision making of smaller countries. Then thirdly, G20 is not able to address challenges within the member nations. The G20 grouping is not able to solve the issues within its member nations, like the US-China issue on trade, US-Russia divide on nuclear weapons, etc. Then other criticism is that G20 has no enforcement mechanism. See, the G20's toolkit ranges from simple exchange of information and sharing of best practices on common measurable targets. None of this is achieved without consensus, nor is it enforceable. Then another criticism is regarding the underrepresentation of the African continent. Except for South Africa, none of the African nations is a member of G20. Then know that G20 declarations are not legally binding. In conclusion, over the past decade, G20 has been an important forum for international cooperation, but to remain the same in future, there must be some reforms in G20. Else, G20 cannot be an institutional remedy for world's problem. So that is all about the article. Climate targets are becoming outdated. India needs its own. We know, right, the target in the Paris Agreement is to keep the planet's surface from warming by 2 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. But in the recently published reports, it is said that planet could soon cross the more ambitious temperature limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius due to natural climate phenomenon. Let us know what the author has to say further. Firstly, the author says, despite negotiations among the representatives of the world countries, which had been for more than 2 decades, he says global carbon emissions have not at all reduced. Secondly, he says 2 degrees Celsius target in the Paris Agreement was not derived scientifically. Thirdly, he says many governments have planned to rely on bioenergy and carbon capture technologies to accomplish these goals which are listed in Paris Agreement. But they do not consider the potential consequences of climate change on food and water security. In the next para, the author talks about uncertainties for India by referring to the pandemic and Ukraine war. So he says the inherent uncertainties leave India and many other economically developing world with some tough choices. Hence, this group of developing countries needs to develop its own tools to determine the local impact of climate change. Especially, he says there has to be indigenous adaptation plans that deals with unavoidable consequences. Adding to that, he says India should continue its leadership role by demanding that communities in IPCC be prepared to improve projections that could accurately quantify the impacts of climate change at local scales. Also, the IPCC and India must also track climate change and its consequences continuously at the socially relevant timescales of few years. Only then we could make evidence-based decision making. So that is what the author has to say in this article. So with this we have completed the news articles discussion now, and let us move to the previous year prelims question discussion. Now coming to the previous year prelims questions, the 2 questions that we are going to discuss now has appeared in the year 2018. Consider this. First question, with reference to the provisions made under the National Food Security Act 2013, consider the following statements. First statement, the families coming under the category of below poverty line only are eligible to receive subsidized food grains. Statement 2, the eldest women in a household of age 18 years or above shall be the head of the household for the purpose of issuance of ration card. Statement 3, pregnant women and lactating mothers are entitled to a take-home ration of 1600 calories per day during pregnancy and for 6 months thereafter. Which of these statements given above is or are correct? The options given are option A 1 and 2, option B 2 only, option C 1 and 3 only, option D 3 only. See, first statement is wrong because the Act provides for coverage of up to 75% of rural population and up to 50% of urban population. This is for receiving subsidized food grains under the targeted public distribution system. Thus, on a whole, it covers 2/3 of the population. So, first statement is wrong. If we remove first statement, we will end up with option B or D. Second statement is correct because it provides the eldest women of the household of age 18 years or above to be the head of household. And if we take the third statement, this is wrong because besides meal to pregnant women and lactating mothers during pregnancy and 6 months after the childbirth, women will be entitled to receive maternity benefit of not less than 6,000 rupees. And since the second statement is correct, the answer for this question is option B, 2 only. Second question, with reference to digital payments, consider the following statements. Statement 1, BIM app allows the user to transfer money to anyone with a UPI enabled bank account. Statement 2, while a chip PIN debit card has 4 factors of authentication, BIM app has only 2 factors of authentication. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? The options given are option A, 1 only, option B, 2 only, option C, both 1 and 2, option D, neither 1 nor 2. See, first statement is correct. The BIM interface for money, which is the BIM, is a payment app that lets you make simple, easy and quick transaction using UPI. You can make direct bank payments to anyone on UPI using their UPI ID or scanning their QR with the BIM app. You can also request money through the app from UPI ID. So first statement is correct. Second statement is wrong because from a consumer point of view, there are 3 levels of authentication that are required in the app. It is not 2 factors of authentication. So one is the device ID and mobile number, then the bank account which you are linking to this app, then finally the UPI PIN which is needed to complete the transaction. So BIM app requires 3-factor authentication. This statement is wrong. The answer for this question is option A, 1 only. With this we have come to the end of news articles and previous year questions discussion. Let us wind up our discussion here. If you like the video and if you can understand the concepts well, please like, comment, share and subscribe to Forum IAS Academy in various social media platforms for further updates. Thank you for listening.